Hey guys, got some breaking news for you here. Thanks for waiting. Sorry it took me a moment to get it going. I was just finishing out the last video and wanted to share this with you guys. Hey David, Cass, Rook, good to see you guys. And guys, some pretty harrowing news out of Russia. MI6. Okay, so you know MI6. That's kind of like the James Bond of England. MI6 says that these targets will be hit with tactical NUKEs in Ukraine. Russian media says use is justified. U.S. and NATO will not budge. China also approves or prepares and launches their DF-5C ICBM with 10 MIRVs. So it looks like this is going down, guys. Hopefully we're going up when this is going down, as many have said. When the BOMBSs go down, we go up. The British intelligence service MI6, citing its sources in Moscow, informed Ukraine and Zelensky about an imminent NUCLEAR strike. Let me say that again, an imminent NUKE strike. Okay, that's a quote. That's an actual quote. So when you see it in the headline and you think I'm being sensational, I'm not. I'm just quoting what they said, stressing that the list of targets has been approved. Okay? The bad news doesn't stop there. It says Russian media have begun to justify the use of tactical NUKE weapons on modern battlefields. The targeting is obvious. Already, the U.S., as you know, is at Defcon 3, according to the level warning system. And that is basically one level before. That's like a readiness that they're ready within 15 minutes to jump on it. The Air Force is ready within 15 minutes. So they're not out, on leave or having a good time being going to be called in. They're ready within 15 minutes notice. They can have those planes in the air. That's what DEFCON 3 is, and that's where we are now. Normal is DEFCON 5, and it goes as high as 1. At 1, we're at full blown out NUKE war. 2 is moving into position, I guess you could say, and 3 is they're at the readiness for it. They're expecting it to happen based on all the rhetoric that's going on right now in the world and based on these things coming in. So they're expected to go up. They're expected to move that DEFCON up to 2, actually. MI6, several targets will be hit, according to MI6. Now, MI6, again, they're the spies. They're the British spies, British intelligence service. More specifically, MI6 reported that the Kremlin had reportedly agreed to strike a number of targets in Ukraine with tactical NUKE weapons. That's just horrible. I mean, that's just sad and horrible. I mean, we know what happened to, what am I thinking of? The place in Russia, Chernobyl. Chernobyl, and they're still recovering from that. I guess now they say it's safe. They've gone in there recently. It's safe enough to go in. Supposedly, that the radiation levels have gone down enough that they can go in there. But I mean, that was just a meltdown, let alone an actual nuclear weapon going off. I mean, like what happened in Japan, I mean, they had nowhere to go from the radiation. So not only did they have the explosions of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but then they had all the radiation fallout, and they're a small little island. Where can they go? And same thing with Ukraine. You can't really go anywhere. And you've got all these other countries that surround there, including Russia, that are going to be affected by that fallout as well, I would imagine. Now, supposedly they have smaller technical NUKEs that are maybe not as big and not as radiation dangerous, perhaps, as the bigger ones. But once you open that Pandora's box, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If you're in it to the end, if you're in it to die, which it seems like Putin is, and in some ways, you can't blame him because the West has lost their mind, and he doesn't want to live in a crazy world. I don't blame him, and they're unwilling to sit down and talk with him as he originally wanted to do, and they've crossed the line with NATO going out and taking places they weren't supposed to take, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from and that side of it. Not to say that he's justified. They think they're justified, but I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I see both sides. What's going on, and I understand that it's the globalists that want this war to happen. They're facilitating it so that it does happen. They want it to happen, and so they're psychopaths. And so, a guy like a dictator like Putin, it's hard to say, But it's actually better to have a guy like that than a bunch of psychopaths, because that guy at least follows some sort of semblance of order to things, right? Whereas the psychopaths, they don't care. They just want everybody dead, and they just want to take over. They'll go into their little bunkers and let everybody else, destroy each other. So they have no interest in trying to salvage anything or save anything or help anybody. So that's where we're at, guys. The world has gone crazy, and this is what happens when the world goes crazy. It says this will not happen immediately or suddenly. Initially, according to the British, Russia will proceed to carry out NUKE exercises, just like it was supposedly carrying out military exercises. And this is where we are now. These are still the military exercises that are being carried out. Carried out NUKE exercises with the launch of hypersonic and NUKE missiles against predetermined targets. Then, if the Ukrainians do not capitulate, then according to British analysis, the Russians will strike Ukrainian bases and roads through which Western weapons are transported. These strikes with tactical nuclear weapons will be carried out far from populated areas, but will make it impossible for a long time to restore the logistics and supply corridors to the Ukrainian ED. Other sources talk about the wider area of Lviv and the road access that connect Ukraine and Poland. The Russians started justifying the use of NUKEs. The Russians then state, official America, represented by the White House, has once again made it clear that the United States will not directly defend Ukraine. In particular, the main newspaper of the Democratic Party and mouthpiece of the U.S. government, the New York Times, firstly recalled that the Russian armed forces have about 1,500 tactical warheads. And secondly, clarified that tactical NUKE weapons, at least in theory, are intended for use as part of a battle plan. 1,500, guys. They have 1,500 of these tactical. That's not including like the big mama jamas that they're gonna, that they drop on a major city or something. These are just technical warheads. Again, they've never been used, so we don't really know what kind of damage these will do. We can only speculate. We don't really know because they've never actually used them in battle before. So, in other words, the NUKE taboo associated with the destruction of Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the Americans applies only to the strategic arsenal. Okay. So, right, they're trying to say it's not going to be the same, but any kind of NUKE is not a good thing. Thus, the NYT states, strategic weapons are designed to deliver a crushing blow as part of a grand strategy. It was the traditional NUKE scare in Washington and Moscow, an NUKE disaster scenario in the style of Dr. Strangelove. Yeah, that's not good. That's actually, that's not technical. That's major. In other words, if we strike the tactical NUKEs in the context of a small conflict, nothing terrible would happen. Yeah, right. Famous last words. If we strike with tactical NUKEs, in a small conflict, nothing terrible will happen. Hundreds, thousands, maybe millions will die, but nothing terrible. Moreover, few know that in 2002, the United States seriously considered the use of tactical NUKE weapons in Afghanistan for a limited range of military operations, in particular to destroy caches deep in the mountains. Well, we're going to have to look up a video here on tactical NUKs and just see what kind of damage they really do. During a briefing on the NUK Doctrine Review on January 9, 2002, Assistant Secretary of Defense Crouch said, "We're trying to look at a number of initiatives, one of which is modifying existing NUKE weapons to give them greater ability against deep or hard targets. Indeed, the U.S. has significantly improved its NUKE arsenal by creating the B-61 Mod 12 series and is already working on Mod 13. When Adam Mount, Director of Defense Position, says that the weakness of Russian conventional weapon systems could explain the possible reliance on NUKE threats, he's blatantly lying. Expert Michelle Gray cites as a counter-argument South Korea's defense plan against North Korean troops, which relies entirely on tactical NUKE weapons. Moreover, to protect Seoul, even U.S. military officers have the right to routinely use NUKE weapons without the Pentagon's consent. In addition, the use of tactical NUKE weapons, apart from international problems, also has significant advantages, especially in combination. See, now they're trying to sell us on this idea. With other tools, dozens of materials can be found on this subject, including serious articles that the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki allegedly saved Japan from many more casualties. Yeah, I'm sure that's how the people who got vaporized felt. More casualties in the United States to continue the war with conventional weapons. In any case, the U.S. generally has no moral right to tell other countries whether tactical NUKE weapons can or cannot be used. Well, you can argue that. Given that the United States is the only country on Earth that has actually used an NUKE weapon against someone else, not once, but twice, Perhaps the better question is, are we really the right people to determine who should have an NUKE weapon? The Americans themselves admit. I would agree with that. Finally, there is still no official clarity on how the Pentagon will react if Russia suddenly activates tactical NUKE weapons. In particular, the New York Times reminds Ukraine is not a NATO ally and is not bound by an agreement on its defense. How convenient. China also launches DF-5C ICBMs 10 MIRVs. At the same time, China, after warnings of very bad developments on the Ukrainian front, proceeded with a test launch of a new DF-5C intercontinental ballistic missile with a maximum range of 12 to 15,000 kilometers, capable of carrying 10 warheads. 10? Why would you need 10 on one? So it drops them as they go, I guess? The rocket has reportedly launched from the Tiwan Space Center, northwest of the city of the same name in Shaanxi province. The missile warheads hit targets at a training range in western China, possibly in the Taklamakan Desert in the Xinjiang Autonomous Region. The DF-5C carries 10 MIRVs, etc., etc. Previous had carried 6 to 8, so now it carries 10. All right, let's take a look at this. So here's the launch. You can see it there in the distance. And I guess that's a practice launch. The increased number of MIRVs may mean China has more than an estimated 250 NUKE warheads, previously believed by the U.S. So I guess one missile can carry 10 warheads. So you launch this one missile, and then it drops, probably at scheduled intervals. It drops these, or maybe at specific intervals, to specific targets. It can actually drop these 10. So you could launch one rocket and bomb 10 different cities, in other words. One can go down to New York, one could go down to, Chicago, one could go to L.A., whatever you wanted to do. Right? More like military bases, I would imagine. But, in any case, Washington, D.C., wherever they wanted. So they can have one missile and it can drop 10 different warheads. That's what I'm getting from this. Why would it have 10 warheads otherwise? Because that would make sense, because you got one traveling over. So as it travels over, it can drop them as it goes. So here's different installations where they have these warheads ready to launch. There's different silos. And I'm going to do a quick search here on tactical NUKEs and see if we can find any video on that. Let me go over here to, we had our Jerusalem cam going. But let me just look up tactical NUK demonstration. See what we find here. So, okay, so here is, this is from 13 years ago. Okay, that's obviously a lot older than 13 years, the video. So let me see. Now they're claiming this is an NUKE weapons test conducted by the U.S. in 1953. Okay, well that's obviously from another time zone. Okay, that doesn't give us much. Let me see if I can find something a little bit more modern than that. Okay, here's talking about 6 months ago. Now that looks like a video game or something. What is this? Okay, that doesn't. What's this? I mean, I would just be interested to see kind of what are we talking about? What kind of damage are we talking about? How is it any different than the other ones? Yeah, you can launch them on missiles versus launching them on the danger of low yield NUKE weapons. Okay. Let me see. I mean, they look pretty bad to me. They still look pretty damaging. Let me go about this a different way. Okay, so there's one. Okay, yeah, that does seem like a smaller sort of mushroom cloud there, I guess, than what you might. Let me back it up though, so we can actually see the explosion part of it. All right, so that was a pretty bright flash in the mushroom cloud. So I guess you could take out a small village or something, I guess. Is that the idea of what it would do? Versus, again, this is kind of old footage. Because they just haven't been used. Maybe they don't have. Here's some tests. Now, these are more modern tests. I imagine these would be considered technical warheads that they're doing in the ocean. So that'd be like a technical warhead there. But that is still pretty huge. Whoa. Okay, so what is that? Is that a test? All right, this is a lot of footage here from different time periods. Let me just, I'm just curious. I want to do a quick search here. Let's see. Tactical nukes versus strategic. All right, let's see. So tactical NUKE weapons have a lower explosive yield than strategic weapons, meaning they're explosively less powerful. This may make them more military useful and less politically objectionable, and thus more likely to be used. What is considered a tactical? Small NUKE warheads and delivery systems intended for use on the battlefield or for a limited strike. But I was really hoping to see some of them in action, but you still have this old footage. You know, it's just old stuff because they've never been used. They've never been used in battle. So this is going to be a first, guys. I think we're going to see some historical images we've never seen because they've never actually used these in battle before. So kind of intriguing. Just wanted to give you a quick update on that. So I think I'll probably cut off this video at this point, but just wanted to let you guys know so that more people know what's going on in the world. Be looking up for Jesus. Hopefully not NUKEs coming your way. All right. Love you guys. All the best. All the blessed. And Maranatha.